Hello and welcome to This Naked Chat, a podcast where six friends from different walks of life come together for honest, unscripted conversations about living alcohol-free and everything that comes with it. We all met at a live event hosted by Annie Grace of This Naked Mind in March of 2024. What started as a mastermind group with the six of us and Annie turned into some really deep friendships, filled with connection, tough conversations, and a lot of laughter. And after a year of growing and learning together, we realized that these conversations might help more than just us. So here we are, no scripts, just real talk. We are incredibly grateful to Annie and This Naked Mind for helping us get this off the ground and for the impact that her work has had on each of our lives. I am Brian, and I am joined by Kori, Agnes, Judi, Jenie, and Sammie. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Good morning.
Hi.
Whatever it is to people. We have today, there was a blizzard, even though who knows when this is recorded, but there are Kori, Agnes, Jenie, Brian today. And the topic for today is, how do you process emotion, or how do you release emotion? And we'll just leave it at that for now. Anyone want to start?
So I spent an overnight with my husband's 5.5-year-old grandson, whose name is Walter. And he's a redhead, so of course he's perfect. And Walter's pretty smart, and he just got glasses. So that was a big deal
Even
for
cooler.
Walter.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they're transformer glasses.
Probably
so
not readers like maybe
Wow.
Agnes and I are wearing right now. But
Exactly.
He told me they were transformer glasses because they turn dark when he goes outside.
nice.
And that's their
Nice.
that's their transformer trick. But so Walter is learning to read, but he does have transformer toys. And I only knew a little bit about what transformers are capable of, but there are these toys that, are plastic, but they have all these tiny, intricate, movable parts. So, for example, you have a truck that can turn into a robot with movable parts, and it does all this cool shit. But you, the person playing with the toy, have to make that transition happen, and it has to be done in sequence, or you'll get stuck. And
Did they not have Transformers when you were growing up, Jenny?
That's what I was wondering. I
Oh,
wanted to
seriously?
ask that out
Oh,
loud
God.
too, but
I was like, Bumblebee is my favorite. I loved Bumblebee.
oh, can we just edit the hell out of this?
I actually went to the movies and I watched it like not long ago.
Oh my God, I had no idea. No, did not have them at all.
have you guys ever heard of a hot ham and cheese? I'm just kidding. I couldn't think of anything else. I love that, Jenny.
Oh my God. Wow.
I didn't know they had to be done in order. That was a new one actually for me. So
In my defense, it would have been so much better if Judi had been here, because she wouldn't have known either. Oh my God. Anyway, so less about me. God, I'm never going to live this down. Right. So periodically, he just got a new one. So it was new to him, and even his dad was getting frustrated. But he got through it, but periodically he would get frustrated, really frustrated, and he would just, ah! And then he would stomp around the room a few times, and he would go sit on the floor and, and then he was done. And he was perfectly back to himself, and he went back to it to try and figure it out again. And it was, in minutes, this happened, and you could just see him letting out his frustration without using words, just saying, in his head, I guess I'm frustrated, whatever. I don't know what's going on in his head. But it was so fascinating to just watch it move through him, and then he was fine so quickly. And I know when I was 5.5, I did not have that skill.
For sure.
If I had that frustration, it would stay with me for hours. Whatever time unit that really means in a 5.5-year-old's brain, but like a way long time. And then I would be grumpy about everything. It didn't matter. Everything was wrong. And it just hung on me until about 3 or 4 years ago, when I finally started learning how to let these things move through me and be able to move on instead of ruminating and perseverating. So it was just, it was pretty fascinating watching him regulate himself. It's, it helps that his mom is a therapist. It does help, but he did this without any direction from her. He just did it on his own. I just think that's miraculous, but also was a good illustrator, I think, to this question of how to process emotion or how to release emotion. That's my story.
It's interesting when you said that, like, it's almost that he did let it out, which is some cases it is and maybe we were taught to not acknowledge it, right? And maybe worse off, bury it and be like, I'm not angry, I'm happy, or I'm not sad, everything's perfect. And to be like, it's okay to express it. I mean, not in all cases. I mean, we've talked about my anger on pickleball and golf. But I mean, there's a piece to that too, of like a healthy way to express it. I might mess this up, but I'll talk about, because I just had this conversation with, it was my therapist. And she tied this back to, I had never heard of this before. I think it's a Myers-Briggs, like the feeler one, where there are, I think it's, what is it, thinker feeler, where like a thinker will actually, not, I'm trying to explain. So I'm a feeler. So when something hits me, it hits and I express it immediately almost. Like there's a really hard time for me to pause. And a thinker has a little bit more time there to pause. And then most often, like in this case, she said her husband is like that. And very rarely will he almost show it. So, and I had never heard that before, but it explains a lot about me, because I've always been this way, specifically around sports, where I'll just get really mad, and you almost have to kind of like the 5-year-old. I'm getting to his level now at the age of 50 something, to where it's like, recognize it. And if you can just, take a little walk around in a circle or say something that kind of resets you, then you can kind of be like, okay, I'm like, it's almost like I need a timeout. But I had never heard the difference between the two personality types. I thought that was interesting. And I don't know anyone who's the thinker to ask, but
I think I must be a thinker. I don't.
Do you not? Yeah.
But also, I mean, I learned to dissociate from my feelings really early, so that maybe that's part of it. But that's funny you're talking about, like in sports. I was just having this conversation last night with a friend. Like, I was super competitive, to the point where, I wasn't even fun to like play cards with, because I would just like be so intense about it. And like, making sure, especially if it's like a partner's game and I think the partner's not holding up their end of the bargain, it wasn't a fun deal. I've managed to back off that a little bit. But in sports though, that's really interesting, because I learned pretty early on that like, if I'd get mad, then it would affect my performance.
For sure.
So I just figured out how to shut that down right away so that I wouldn't mess up the next thing, But again, that whole being able to dissociate, it helps a lot with that. you could just cut that off and move on, you know? Yeah, I mean, I think for me now, the whole thing is like, I want to understand it. Like, that is the thing. Like, I feel something and I want to understand it. It's not enough.
Like, where is it coming from type thing?
Yes,
What's
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel whatever way, and I like want to try to dig into it and understand it. So I write a lot to try to process stuff. Or if it's something I am figuring out here recently, like if it's something I can't quite figure out, I've written about it, maybe there's just not enough data points to like get a pattern to understood, then like, you know, then sometimes like, you know, just listening to music or cleaning or something like that will help kind of let it bypass until I can like really figure it out. But yeah, I always want to like I want to understand it. That's the first thing I want to do is like understand what is happening.
And this is too, like, it seems like this is that exercise, even what I was talking about, or like, you know, maybe I do have some sort of tendency to go ahead and like it hits me, but there is a practice, right? To be able to pause, right? Like that seems like the whole game of like that space between type thing. Is it Viktor Frankl?
The liminal
kind of said
space
that, right?
too.
Like, yeah, like that, like to catch it almost.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's sort of about, okay, your feeling part or your feeling characteristic that dominates. I'm that way too, for sure. Can then take a minute and engage that thinker part and sit in the, you know, but that requires, I don't know, practice to be able to take that pause and not react and become aware. That stupid word that we all are learning is so important. That takes a minute to not shut down the feeling part and not push it away, but to just say, hang on a minute, let's slow you down, put you on pause, and let's engage our prefrontal cortex to really try and understand this. That's interesting to me, that dovetail thing. And, you know, I could almost see that happening in Walter's brain as he got it out and then took a deep breath and then went back to engage his transformer activity.
I think too, the other thing, thinking about him, me, and kind of what Kori was talking about too, is you do start to recognize the pattern of getting there. Like you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel it and I know where this ends up. So I'm going to catch it early this time. Like recognize that I'm going down a path and I know where it leads and I don't want to buy another pickleball paddle. Not that has ever happened 5 times, but, you know, I mean, that's kind of also the exercise. I've been like, oh, okay, I feel kind of where this is familiar, and I'm going to catch it early, you know?
So
and
to
that point, I think like you can back even way up. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do to just sort of help yourself regulate overall, you know, like physical activity or journaling or whatever, just like helps you respond in those cases. And it's like, instead of it being this huge spike, then, well, now you're like overall more regulated. So like, okay, it's just kind of like, you know, the crest of the wave instead of like this huge spike of emotion.
Huh.
Not so much for you.
No, I know. Hey, I'm working on it. I wanted to think too this, and I don't know how this relates, but you know, just because what we talk about on this podcast a lot is alcohol and whatnot. I wonder how it ties in there of like, we've talked about this millions of times, but like I used to probably not process anything. I would make it go away, right? I would turn my brain off. And I think this was one of the more difficult pieces of stopping, was to actually have to sit with these emotions and learn how to better regulate, better express, versus just turning it off basically just for a little bit, right? Because we learned that, oh, look what popped up the next morning, only tenfold, because now I'm shaming myself for drinking or whatever. So I'm just wondering how that kind of plays into this. I've talked about it, like, it was every emotion, right? It wasn't just negative ones. It was like, oh, we need to celebrate. Let that a happy emotion. Let's go drink. I'm sad. Let's go drink. So I'm like, and this probably is why I still have these kind of issues. But like you're saying, what a benefit for a 5-year-old to kind of already be learning to process this.
This episode is sponsored by This Naked Mind, a revolutionary approach to changing your relationship with alcohol. When it comes to your drinking, you don't have to hit rock bottom to want something different, and you don't have to do it alone. This Naked Mind blends neuroscience, psychology, and self-compassion to help you stop relying on willpower and start creating real, lasting change. No shame, no labels, and no rules. Whether you want to take a break, drink less, or stop drinking for good, This Naked Mind has a program that meets you where you are, with world-class coaching and a compassionate, judgment-free community to support you every step of the way. Learn more about This Naked Mind at thisnakedmind.com.
What was scary for me, I wouldn't have been able to articulate this when I was Walter's age, but I think how it began for me wasn't so much the individual emotion, whatever it might have been. It was the intensity of the emotion. And that's what I grew up to want to shut down, was just the intensity of it. I was okay. I still think this is true. I was okay being sad or mad or happy. That was a really scary one, though. Being super happy was terrifying. But it was, if they were really at intense levels, yeah. And being volatile by nature, I'm from 0 to 60 like that. There's no less intense, but still present emotion. Back then, there wasn't. And I think that's what I drank to tamp down, was that intensity. The more I've thought about this. Yeah. Agnes, I sort of interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I just was afraid I was going to forget my thought.
No, I was so my whole perspective on these emotions and feelings, all of it is really, we're taught from a very, very young age, obviously, that, emotions are not healthy and not good. Now I know that they're teaching kids that they are and how to express them and all of that, which is amazing. But back in our generations, it wasn't a part of any of that. And I just feel like they come in two different sets. It is the feeling within the body, the nervous system, or it's the mind. It's something that was thought about, said, or done that caused some emotion, some feeling to come up, which then would trigger the body as well. So it's deciphering between what is it? Is it I'm uncomfortable within my body itself, something doesn't feel right? Or was I thinking about something, or did something occur that, again, could go back to your subconscious mind and working through that? So as kids, they, again, you see a kid acting out, society tends to label that child. Parents tend to put meaning to that they're failing as a parent and their embarrassment comes up. So that all affects how things get processed and what is the right way, because feelings are so unique that no two people can feel the same thing. Happiness does not feel the same in both people. And again, is that happiness in the mind, or is it in the body, or is it in both? So it's very complex. So, and I feel that it's like it's upgrading how you handle it and deal with it. So if a child, if they're feeling something intense, talking it through with them, maybe not in the moment, telling them, okay, take a second, come back, and now actually discussing it so they understand what was going on and what was happening will help them build their awareness as they continue growing and getting older. Because, adults, they can't go around having temper tantrums. It does happen. But again, that's not acceptable. So immediately everyone says, oh, you're being a child. Well, because they haven't learned how to do that. And it's figuring out how to regulate your nervous system, your body. And that is, as adults, that becomes breath work. That becomes maybe meditation. That could become, going for a walk or giving yourself that time out. So that way you could calm down, refocus, and then be able to do it. So, and then if you numb it, any emotion, you numb it, it is going to, it's going to stay within that body. So all emotions have to come out, because if it doesn't actually come out externally, it will fester within the body. And that's where all these studies are coming out about how stress is causing cancer and diseases and diabetes and all this other stuff, not just, let's say, food and all that, but it's a combination of everything, because now we're tying all these other outside things to make us feel a different way, which is it's not fixing anything.
It's so interesting what you just said about the kids getting labeled, by having this emotion. I mean, as Jenie was describing what Walter's process was, I immediately thought a lot of parents would not be okay with that. Even though he's not doing anything to anybody else, and it's his own game that he's pausing, right? And he's stomping around the room and doing whatever he needs to do. A lot of people would not be okay with that, And to your point about even in adulthood, there is this line of if I go off and scream in my car or whatever, that's my own goddamn business. I'm not, I'm not hurting anybody screaming in my car. Now, if I scream in the middle of the office and disrupt other people, okay, this is a different deal. But it's so bizarre to me that any of that, even if it's not hurting anybody, it's only his little process or whatever. It's only me screaming in the car. And yet everybody's all weird about it because I, am releasing this emotion however I choose to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting too. And, Agnes named a few different things, but like you're saying, Kori, doing some of those things, you're almost experimenting with what works for you, right? For some people, it might be going out in their car and yelling.
Yep.
You named meditation and other things like that. I think that's part of this. First is catching it and be I'm feeling an emotion. And instead of bearing it, I'm going to be what is this? And then kind of testing these ways to, all right, now how do I regulate? And there's millions of ways, and what works for you doesn't work for other people.
Yep.
And you can preach it to the, oh, it's meditation is the answer. It's maybe not for you,
Yep.
Which I think was the hardest, is a hard thing for people.
Well, it's the openness and willingness and curiosity. All of that comes into play in trying different things. I have a friend that, when her son has discovered that running water soothes him. So when instead of having that temper tantrum, he will run water, so then that way it soothes him down. Well, that is amazing. Can you imagine if kids at that age started learning that, screaming and yelling, that's not the answer. You can have other things. Okay, so maybe a 2-year-old, that was the answer, because they're not going to figure out that running water helps them. But you know what? But you outgrow that too. And then eventually that turns into something else. So again, it's not one of those fixed cookie cutter things. It's not, and it's playing around with that and trying to figure out, okay, well, what right now at this point in my life, in this stage in my life, what works for me?
Yeah.
And it's children learning that, okay, let's explore, let's figure this out without intensifying it, without putting meaning to it and labeling it.
Yeah.
It becomes all uncomfortable. Like it's people being uncomfortable. It's us being uncomfortable with somebody else's behavior, them being uncomfortable with their own behavior. That's all it is. Because if we were all comfortable, then we could be more curious about it instead of judgmental, because uncomfort becomes judgment.
Yeah.
Seems like some of this too, like you said, like the running water and Jenny's example, it doesn't take long, right? We know that these are a lot of the times, I won't say a lot of the times, but sometimes it's just a quick thing, right? It's like, oh, it's just real high right now. And then it comes back down to a level where it maybe is still uncomfortable, but it's bearable again, you know, and that's not always the case, but it can be, you do kind of recognize that, hey, I can just step over here, do something and come back, or run water and come back. And it's that little pause.
The other thing that was interesting with Walter, as the hours passed when we were with him and still with the Transformers, there were times when he noticed that he was getting stuck and having trouble, and it wouldn't escalate, to your point, Brian. He wouldn't get all the way up here. He would be back here somewhere, and he would recognize it, and it would occur to him to go to his mom or dad and say, "Can you please help me?" And then they would say, "What would you like me to help you with?" As a means to get him to ask specifically for, what do you need from me? And he would say, "Can you please put the hand in this slot, like, so it looks like that? And do you want me to do both of them?" "No, I want you to do this one, and then I'll do that one." So there were, as you're saying, as you were talking, Brian, it was reminding me that there were definitely points at which he did recognize somehow that he was starting to get, and then he could stop himself and say, "Oh, wait, I remember I'm supposed to ask for help before I get." So that was also part of this. The whole thing was fascinating to watch.
Maybe his mom could come to my house.
I know. I mean, I think that's what's so interesting about this, I'm still dealing with this, at 50 something, right? Like Agnes mentioned it, and things that maybe worked for me earlier don't now, right? And I think that applies to a bunch of things too, where it's like your go-to thing might change for whatever reason. And that sucks too. Cause you're like, oh, I thought I had something figured out and it doesn't. So it's just kind of
not,
right?
Because alcohol was a go-to for me.
Sure.
Right. And I was like, okay, that's not working for me anymore either. So
yeah.
It's being able to change that state within yourself for that instance. Like, they say, you're feeling some kind of deep, intense emotion. Well, you know what? Jump up and do jumping jacks or something, like 5 of them, or do 5 push-ups, like something, because again, that physical movement within your body, it breaks up whatever was stuck in there to help you calm it down. And then you could figure out how to navigate whatever you need to moving forward. So it's a reminder of, okay, do that. Like, you don't have to be stuck in it where we force ourselves. No, we got to get through this, and that just doesn't work.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. And one of the things this is so weird, but I will just the thing of moving my paddle from my right hand to my left hand, it resets a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yep,
so it can be
Yep.
something so simple of like you said, it can be just we're just breaking the pattern a little bit, to what it is normally.
And plus, you're engaging your thinking brain
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Because
so,
now
I mean,
your thinking brain, this isn't automatic in your left hand. And
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
do that during
There
the
is
play.
also something with the bilateral thing that changes.
It's like when Agnes mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Anything else here?
What a great conversation.
Yeah.
Very good.
Lovely.
Especially since Jenny learned about Transformers.
Oh, glad you circled it back to that. I'm going to look those up. They sound fascinating. There's some probably worth like $1 million nowadays, but if you find one in a box,
like the
you know.
original,
Oh my
the
Yeah,
original
right?
box
I
set.
bet.
Yeah.
My
So,
goodness.
wait, are there movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
well, there goes Judy's week. Jenny's week.
Cartoon. I mean, there was
Yeah.
a cartoon when I was a kid, and the
Really?
toys came out. Yeah, and then now in the last few years, they've had some movies, and
I think
Yeah.
people have actually done real cars too, right? Like,
yeah.
No way. Cool.
Yeah.
so get yourself one of those too. All right. You're all the best.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If something we said resonated, made you laugh, or made you think, we'd love it if you share it with someone who might need it too. And if you're curious about going alcohol-free or just ready to feel more connected to yourself, check out This Naked Mind. Annie's work brought us all together, and we're so grateful for the impact it's had. On that note, a big thank you to Annie Grace and This Naked Mind for making this podcast possible. We'll see you next time on This Naked Chat.